Passengers are forced to jump from moving transit because the batteries are overheating and catching fire. Shops are struggling to keep cooling appliances in stock, and city infrastructure is actively melting under the sun. This map shows the driver. Meteorologists call it an omega block. A massive high-pressure system has parked itself over the continent, mirroring the shape of the Greek letter omega. This system acts like a giant atmospheric vacuum. It pulls in hot air directly across the Mediterranean, trapping it right in the center of the block. That extreme heat originates from the Sahara Desert. As a result, Europe is currently warming faster than any other continent on Earth. It is a deadly crisis that their historical infrastructure is simply not designed to handle. When roads melt or blackouts hit India, the international coverage often points to local failures. The reporting focuses on a lack of civic sense, poor urban planning, and systemic mismanagement. But when the same crisis hits Paris or London, the lens changes. Citizens are framed as tragic victims of a changing climate. Why is an environmental disaster in the West treated purely as an act of nature, while the same event in the East is blamed on the people living there? To understand the reality behind these headlines, we must look past media coverage and into the long-term data of how we actually got here. A modern European skyline often looks highly developed and impeccably clean, but this pristine image was built over 300 years of heavy industrialization, fueled by burning massive amounts of coal and natural gas. That wealth was accumulated through centuries of colonization. Raw materials were extracted from Asia and Africa, while environmental consequences were left in the colonies. When we examine global historical data from 1751 to 2017, one specific region holds a disproportionate share of the carbon in our atmosphere. This chart represents global historical CO2 emissions. Europe alone is responsible for a staggering 1/3 of all global carbon output. The continent now burning under Saharan heat waves is mathematically responsible for 1/3 of the global warming causing them. Modern critics often point out that India currently ranks third in the world for total annual CO2 emissions. The discrepancy lies in which specific metric is chosen to define responsibility. When discussing wealth, Western institutions use per capita GDP to highlight India's poverty. But when discussing pollution, they switch to total emissions to hide their own consumption. Total emissions are driven by population size. Per capita data, however, reveals the actual environmental footprint of an individual's lifestyle. This is a chart showing annual CO2 emissions per capita. The average person in the US emits 14 tons a year. In Europe, it's 5.3 tons. India sits at just 2.2 tons. An individual's carbon footprint in India is well below the global average. The narrative that developing nations are the primary drivers of climate change only works if we completely ignore individual consumption rates. Many young people in developing nations dream of migrating to the West, chasing what they see as a postcard-perfect lifestyle and comfortable weather. But the climate reality is changing. European housing was historically optimized to trap heat for harsh winters. These homes lack ceiling fans or central air conditioning, effectively becoming furnaces in the summer. Right now, families in France are struggling to sleep in indoor heat that has become unbearable. Even when they can find fans, high electricity rates make running them all night a luxury they can't afford. Climate change does not respect borders. Escaping to a 45-degree Europe is no different than enduring a 45-degree summer in India. Exposing this historical debt isn't about shifting blame to avoid action. It's about recognizing that while the West holds the carbon ledger, the rising temperatures are a reality we all share. We cannot wait for international treaties to cool our cities, and we cannot rely on the fantasy of moving to a flawless country. Resilience starts where we actually have control, our own homes and neighborhoods. That might mean shifting to solar power, starting a home compost, or planting trees in your street. Every local action builds a defense against a warming world. Regardless of the global hypocrisy, the goal remains the same. Take ownership of your immediate surroundings and leave the world better than you found it.